The plan was to make a video about space exploration games today. I mean, No Man's Sky is just coming out on PC. I've done a video about Star Control 2 last week. I'm gonna do one about Elite 2 tomorrow. What better time to make a show about space exploration than now? But then some things happened. Well, some things have kept happening, and it's reached a point where I probably should say something on the subject. The video card industry is currently in a bit of a strange place. One that's caused by, well, basically lack of competition for a while now. AMD does make some good cards, but in terms of comparable performance overall, be it to shenanigans and optimizations in quotation marks, be it the driver issues, be it the technical issues, they're not as good as the Nvidia ones at the same price level. And Nvidia knows that. They've realized that, and that's why this year they've decided, you know what, let's take that lead and drive it all the way to the bank, which has materialized in about a $50 price spike in all of Nvidia's new products. Now, as someone that lives in Europe, that 50 bucks isn't 50 bucks, it's not even 50 euros, it's a hell of a lot more. If a GTX 1080 was only 600 euros around here, oh my god, it would have been selling like hotcakes, but it's not. Some of the cheapest ones you can get are about 800 euros, and I'm not talking about the Founders Edition. That's an even bigger price gouge directed at people that wanted to get the card first. Seemingly, the reference design is now premium, for reasons that I don't understand, because it's not as good as the custom designs. Yeah, I know Nvidia does an okay job, but a blower fan is a blower fan. You ever had one of those get filled up with dust and, well, a bit stuck? Do you know the kind of noise they make? Do you know how hard it is to clean? You either have to take it all off, then hope you can put it back together, or drill a hole through it and oil it. Now, in some part, I can understand why they increased the price. They spent, I believe, over $1 billion developing Pascal. That's a huge investment to recoup. It was a very expensive technology to make because it was built upon a brand new fabrication process of 16 nanometers with FinFET, meaning there's 3D transistors that are a lot less power hungry. Also, Pascal seems to have some abilities to actually do async compute. Not full abilities, but still better than Maxwell did, because Maxwell didn't have any, even though Nvidia kept saying, well, yeah, we do have async compute. Yep, we totally know what that is. And 3.5 is actually 4. And what do you mean we cranked up the tessellation and Hairworks to a bajillion just so we can gimp other video? No, we didn't do that. Oh, sorry, you proved we did? Oh, look, behind you, a bear. You know, classic Nvidia stuff. This is the company whose charts, whose marketing charts will start at 9.999 if there's an 0.0002 difference between one video card and another. And they'll just stretch out that 0.00022 difference to make it seem like it's a gigantic thing when it's not. Still, credit where credit is due. The new video cards are actually good. Like, they have amazing power. I predicted this would happen, that the new generation of video cards will just stamp all over the old ones, because we made a giant leap in production. We went from 28 nanometer to 14 and 16. We skipped over the 20 nanometer phase, like entirely over it. No one did it. So the gains are amazing. So why shouldn't we pay more for video cards? I mean, now a GTX 1070 has more power than a Titan X, well, the old Titan X. Well, yeah, and the 770 has pretty much more power than the old Titan as well. You know, that's what happens when you go from one generation to another. You expect them to become better. That's why you're buying the new generation instead of buying a higher powered version of the current one. I've seen this argument from people, from actual consumers, that, well, you can't complain it's more expensive because, well, look, the 1080 is more powerful than the old Titan. Who cares? If it wasn't, it would have been a failure. And speaking of the Titan, Nvidia has, of course, as you know, announced a new Titan X, the Titan XP as any sane person will call it, because calling it Titan X again will make no sense, which is $200 more expensive than the old one. And it doesn't have HBM2 memory, no, it just has GDDR5X again, 12 gigs of it. Meaning that the GTX 1080 Ti is gonna come out soon. It will have 8 gigs of RAM probably, or 10 maybe. It'll be a bit cut down and will cost around, well, I'd say $700 to $750. And that's not in the Founders Edition. That one would probably go to $900. And making it won't require that much effort because, so how shall I put this? The Titan X and the old one weren't really as compute heavy as the first Titan. The first Titan, to its credit, that thing could crunch numbers like no one's business. That thing had amazing computing capabilities. The newer ones don't. The newer ones are geared more towards gaming, and they do have some capabilities to actually do deep learning things that, well, they're starting to become more popular now. But on the number crunching side, like double precision calculations, they're crap, like complete crap. Like, I believe the old Titan, the first Titan, still kicks their ass right now at double precision calculations. Now that was a video card that was worth the money, because you got basically a Tesla video card, a Quadro video card, or whatever they call them, for a lot less money. Which is quite funny because in the old days, in the 8800 days, you could actually flash the BIOS of an 8800 and turn it into a Quadro. Nvidia fixed that bug because, you know, they would have lost money if they haven't. Now, just so you think this video isn't about Nvidia bashing, because I've been called an AMD fanboy before by people that have not noticed that I do bash AMD quite severely sometimes. I mean, I gave Bulldozer the biggest fail of the year award when it came out, well, at the end of the year, during the yearly awards of failure. The reason I wanted to make this video today is because the RX 460 was just released, and it's not an RX 460. A very important thing to note is that this card is priced at $110 or 110 euros. It differs. It is a very cheap card, but it's still not an RX 460. You see, the name 460 would imply that it's somewhere below the 470 in a certain range of it. It's not. This is the RX 450. What AMD has launched is the RX 450. You may wonder why I say that. Well, it is immensely underpowered compared to the 470. The 470 has 2000 and something cores. This one has not even 900, which, to be fair, the old R7 260X also had the exact same number of cores, but the 270 had a lot less cores too. There was an escalation that went all the way up. Now, not so much. There's a 480 with 2300 cores, there's a 470 with 2000, and this one with 896. There is a giant performance gap there, and one that is very noticeable. I've heard a hypothesis that I have not been able to confirm so far, that the Polaris 11 GPU, which is being used in the RX 460, is the cut down version, meaning that there would be another Polaris 11 GPU which would have the full 1024 cores, I believe. Now, if that was a fact, then the one with the higher cores, that would have been the RX 460, and this would have been the RX 450. Or maybe AMD is saving this for the next generation, for, you know, when they come out with Vega as well, because they've done it in the past before. They have withheld older tech and launched it during a new GPU cycle just to fill in the gaps. They did this with the R9 380X, which was the R9 295X, which was oh no, it doesn't have an X. It was the GPU they used for the integrated graphics on the iMacs. That was the full Tonga XT GPU. They released it a year later for desktops as the 380X. And they may do the same with the new version of Baffin, which is what the RX 460 GPU is called, and its full version is the RX 560. Or maybe they're gonna go the other route and just make revisions, which I hope they do, it will be less embarrassing, and call it the RX 465. That's what their numbering pattern suggests. Now the reason I keep calling this video card underpowered is, well, that it is. One of the things I kept expecting from this generation, and Nvidia delivered a lot, was that AMD too would offer better performance than the older generations. The RX 460 is, according to AMD's own numbers, about 1.3, 1.4 faster than the, well, R7 260X. The R7 260X used to be called the 7790 and it was released in 2013 and it had the same number of cores. You see the problem, don't you? And that's not all. Comparing it to today's video cards, it does not stack well against the 950, the GTX 950. The GTX 950 was released a year ago, and yet in a lot of benchmarks, especially the ones that don't use async compute, it's a more powerful video card. Now you may say, well, yeah, the GTX 950 is $150. This one is $110. Not really. Where I'm from, the GTX 950 is about the same price. The higher end versions of the RX 460 are more expensive than the GTX 950, even though it's kinda weaker. Now I do attribute some of this to the local retailers being absolute assholes and charging a premium for any new technology because they can. We have no protection against scum. But still, it's a 1-year-old card based on a 28nm process with less cores, lower frequencies, and still it either matches or just beats the RX 460 in a lot of games and benchmarks. And keep in mind that this card would have been made, the RX 460 would have been made to go head to head with the GTX 1050, which it will not. It will not entirely. It can't. If it can't beat the 950, it will not do anything against the newer one. So again, this is not an RX 460 because an RX 460 would have been better. This is the lower cost RX 450, which they branded as a 460, so people would believe it's a 460, but it's not. Yeah, it's more powerful than the 260, the 260X I mean, because that is an ancient video card. But calling it an RX 460 sort of sets up expectations that it does not in any way, shape or form meet. Calling it the RX 450 would have actually been better because hey, for an RX 450, for something that ends in a 50 in the AMD line, it's doing amazing. I mean, it beats the 260X. It's head to head with the Nvidia 950, which is a higher tier card from last generation. So yeah, everything shapes up nicely, but it doesn't. It's not. It's a lemon. Well, no, it's not a lemon. It's still better than what I have now, which is a GTX 750, which actually isn't saying much because this is the baseline of what you could still call a gaming video card from the 700 line, which is, what, 3 years old now? And hey, I get it. AMD does not have money. They cannot afford a lot of product. I'm actually amazed they didn't rebrand anything this year. They just launched 3 video cards and then prayed to the gods, and the performance is good. Like overall, it's good performance, mostly, but we are getting a bit screwed. We're getting screwed on the pricing by Nvidia, and we're getting screwed on what we're actually buying by AMD. Also, some of your motherboards may explode with the RX 480 because it's still drawing a bit too much power from everywhere. If you have the default version, that is the reference one, because the custom ones actually have proper VRM. So that would be this rant about video cards. Like this year was supposed to be the biggest leap we've ever had in performance. It kinda is, but we also got a leap in prices and a leap in disappointment overall. Yay! Congratulations! See, this is what happens when you don't have competition. This is what happens when you get stuck with just 2 companies making video cards. You don't have 3DFX anymore because they were bought out by Nvidia when they went bankrupt. You don't have Matrox anymore, now they're using AMD cards. You don't have VIA that made the S3 graphics cards. You don't have silicon integrated systems which made got the SIS 315, which was my first standalone discrete video card. That was a good card. Crappy drivers, I mean, I had to change between two versions of the driver to play either Warcraft 3 or a Macronox, but it worked. It was a good card. It ran everything up to GTA Vice City and Need for Speed Most Wanted, the first one I mean. And now there's just two, and unless AMD can make the Vega 10 Greenland GPU be the best pony basically, and design processors to be actually good, there's gonna be one. There's gonna be Nvidia. And for x86 processors, it'll be just Intel. And then we will be completely screwed. Like totally screwed. Abysmally screwed. Though actually Intel can't be the only developer for x86. It's part of the antitrust thing that they're not allowed to actually be the only one. If they do, they will, I believe, get broken up in about 6 different companies. None of them allowed to dominate the entire tech sector. Well, let's hope it doesn't come to that, and that things will get better in the future. As if they don't, if I end up having to pay $700 for a GTX 2070, I'm gonna be mad. I'm gonna be really, really mad. If you enjoyed this show, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Or, if you thought it was horrible, then share it with your enemies and make them suffer. We shall be your weapon of vengeance. But if you liked what you saw, you could, I don't know, maybe donate, because basically YouTube is horrible at revenue, by using the link in the description, or just buy my book. It's a fantasy book about, well, a lot of stuff. I guarantee it won't suck, and if it does suck, you can find me here and complain about it.